Hello and welcome to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host on the weekends, Jake Daley, joined by my co-host, good friend, Mehrob Fatemi. How are we doing tonight?
Doing amazing, Jake. How are you, man?
Oh, wonderful. Can't complain. Got to the end of another week, so that's always a good thing. But we've got not a bad day for some sports in this world on this weekend, on this Saturday, June 14th. Gonna go over Game 4 of the NBA Finals, obviously a big-time matchup there in the world of basketball. We're also going to talk a little bit about NFL. Going to get into the Cincinnati Bengals and Shamar Stewart, their first-round pick, holding out right now, not reporting to minicamp. Going to get into what's going on there. And we're also going to dive into the NHL. Talk about the Stanley Cup and what's been an incredible series so far. Gonna preview that Game 5 tonight. But first, before I dive into anything else, I just want to remind everybody that this show, it's all about you. We love hearing your comments, your questions, your insights, your opinions, your hot takes, whatever you got. We want to hear it. We want to make this show as interactive, as exciting as possible. Now, one easy way to do that, if you're on YouTube, you can use the Super Chat feature. To use the Super Chat feature, all you have to do is click the $ at the bottom of the chat box, type in your message there, send that in. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, gets read live, and it's also just a great way to support our channel. Now, if you're not on YouTube, if Super Chat's not your thing, you can also go to gsmcpodcast.net to tip or donate there at that link. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. Now, let's get into the biggest story, I think, of today in the NBA Finals, Game 4 last night. An incredible game and kind of a different game that I think we've seen from this series. Oklahoma City, the ones to erase a 10-point deficit in the second half and come back. Maybe, what did you kind of think from this Game 4? What was your reactions? And just anything you kind of thought stood out.
Yeah, what a game we saw last night, Jake. Really, if there was a game that we could mark so far through 4 games in this series, this was the best game of the series so far, hands down. And if every game is going to be like that or better, we are in for a crazy, at least, or in my estimation, 3 games left, because I don't know about you, Jake, but this feels like a 7-game series now. The Thunder coming away with a crucial win in Indiana, 111-104, the final score, and erasing that 10-point deficit. It really looked like the Pacers were cruising to that win last night, going into the halftime with a 3-point lead, and then that third quarter where they kind of exploded. It looked like they had everything under control throughout this one. But with 9 minutes left in the game, the Thunder needing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to step up in a big way. SGA with all the pressure on him, and honestly, it felt like this series was starting to take a turn in the same way 2 years ago or last year when we saw the Dallas Mavericks take out the Oklahoma City Thunder, when we saw Luka start taking over in that Game 4, and SGA starting to crumble. Was this going to be a repeat of that? And SGA said no. SGA coming alive in the last 6 minutes of this game, going off for 8 points in the last 6 minutes, hitting a clutch 3, a couple clutch buckets, getting to the free throw line big time. He came alive, finishing with 35 points. Jalen Williams by himself also putting in another 27. Caruso being the first player in NBA history to have multiple 20-point games after having 0 in the regular season. 0, the first person in NBA history. And he's been phenomenal throughout this series. He's a big reason why Oklahoma City won this game last night. Did I mention Chet Holmgren had a double-double with 14 and 15? The guy that we said had to step up in a big way, showed up and showed out. This was a team win for the Thunder, and honestly, this could be this win last night for the Thunder could shift the entire series, because what would have been a 3-1 lead for Indiana going back to OKC is now a 2-2 series going back to OKC. And when teams win every team that wins Game 5 wins 4 out of 5 times in most series. This is 2 teams that haven't been here before, and this is going to be a massive Game 5.
Yeah, I think one of the kind of interesting things that you brought up is almost how the Pacers kind of gave away this game, right? We saw Oklahoma City almost steal it right at the end. Almost kind of inverse of what happened in game one, where Indiana stole that game from the Thunder on their home court. I just think it's kind of interesting where we've kind of seen, normally it's been the Pacers that have kind of clawed back from these double-digit deficits and been able to just somehow find a way to win. But this game, it was Oklahoma City. 3 for 17 from the three-point line. Had more turnovers than they had assists in this game, yet they were still able to win. What do you think that kind of says for the rest of this series going forward right now? Do you think it's Oklahoma City's just to run away with it?
I really do. I think this is now OKC's series to lose. I keep feeling like I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Whoa. Just got a tickle in my nose.
Yeah, it's all
But
right. It's the
for this
weekend.
series,
We're a little more laid back on the weekend crew here.
we're hanging out. We're doing it. We're going with it. Excuse me. I'm sneezing a lot. I got allergies going. Something's going crazy in my nose. But when we're talking about this series right now, it really feels like this is OKC's series to lose. They have Game 5 on their home court. They're going to be heavily favored to win. This is their series. If they win Game 5, like I said, 4 out of 9, 8 out of 10 times, 4 out of 5 times, teams win. Whoever wins Game 5 wins this series. And the way that OKC's been winning these games have been much more dominant, it feels like, than the way Indiana has. Indiana stealing Game 1. Game 3, they kind of had to. It felt like Indiana was going to win this game. If there was a game that Indiana was going to win, it felt like it was going to be Game 3. But Game 2, Aaron Wiggins came alive and the Thunder dominated. Game 4, the Thunder steal. And that's why I'm saying this game last night was so crucial, because the way that Indiana was playing, it literally just felt like OKC flipped the script on them. So this is their series to lose. They have home court advantage once again. Game 5, if it goes to a Game 7, it will be once again in OKC. Indiana has to win this game in Game 5. They have to win on Monday night if they want to have a chance. And even then, do not count OKC out of it. I still think this is OKC's series to win.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of valid points here. I don't know if Indiana's going to go away that quietly. And this was a really interesting game where in the fourth quarter, everything that could go wrong went wrong. We saw them go 5 of 18 from the field, miss all 8 of their three-point attempts, couldn't rebound. Pascal Siakam, who was their leading scorer throughout the game, couldn't do anything in the fourth quarter. Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, 1 of 7 in the fourth quarter. Only Tyrese Halliburton. That's kind of been his quarter, right? The fourth quarter. Only him kind of did something okay in the fourth quarter for Indiana. I just think that shows how much it changed from the beginning of this game to the end. And it's going to be interesting if Indiana's going to be able to get back any momentum. They're going to have to go on the road to Oklahoma City. And this Thunder team, they're really, really good. We say it a lot, but they're the best team in the NBA, I think, from top to bottom. From what they've done this entire regular season into the postseason. I think an interesting parallel was from their Denver series, right? Similar thing happened in Game 4 of that series, where they were down, could have gone down 3-1, but able to climb back in the fourth quarter, tie that series up 2-2, and really change the momentum there. Is this something similar where Oklahoma City is going to be able to capitalize on this and just take it and run with it?
I definitely wouldn't be shocked. That's honestly an amazing parallel. If we're looking as a whole right now, this is just an incredible series as a whole from all of these guys. I'm gonna shut my camera off before something nasty happens. Sorry, I just had to clean my nose up really quick before that just dripped all over the camera. Nobody wants to see that. I know. But when we're
We
looking
are
at this right
struggling
now,
on this Saturday today here.
I'm
With the,
all over the place. This is the craziest intro to any show I've ever done ever. So I'm sorry to all the viewers, but when we're looking at this right now, that was an unbelievable parallel. OKC kind of stole that game for, and they were in a similar situation. They reclaimed home court advantage, being down 2-1, could have been down 3-1, and then somehow that game 4 kind of turned the series around for them. I could see something really similar happening here. And Indiana, that's why I'm saying Indiana kind of shot themselves in the foot. Them not being able to make a shot in that fourth quarter was huge. SGA was everywhere. Miles Turner, this was something that I noticed as well. Miles Turner kind of got into foul trouble late in this game, and OKC started to go after that big time. When that kind of stuff happens, I mean, those are recipes for disaster. Not only for that's a recipe for disaster for Indiana, but anything that happens like that. Say that happens to a Chet Holmgren, Indiana's going to attack that every time. These are little simple mistakes that end up being an entire difference to games. So, as a whole, yeah, I think this is going to be OKC. I'm probably leaning towards OKC winning this series now. As much as I think Indiana can put up a fight, and I think they will, it's going to need to be something heroic from Tyrese Halliburton. If Nikola Jokic can't do it, I mean, we need Tyrese Halliburton to show up in a big way if Indiana wants to have a chance here.
Yeah, you brought up free throws and just kind of getting into foul trouble. That was a big storyline here, was Oklahoma City being able to get to the free throw line and make their free throws, going 34 of 38 from the stripe, whereas the Pacers were 25 of 33. Still got to the line, but just weren't as efficient and didn't get there as much as the Thunder. I think that is kind of a big storyline here. And then also just the presence of the other two in that Oklahoma City Big Three, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, to kind of be able to really, really step up in this game. Jalen Williams, most of his damage coming at the start of this game, but putting in 27 points, 8 of 18 from the field, 11 of 11 from the free throw line. I think that was huge. And then you mentioned Chet Holmgren as well, really kind of upping his game despite rolling his ankle. It seemed like at least once throughout the game yesterday, still having 14 points and 15 rebounds. I think those two guys stepping up and giving the Thunder a supplementary option besides SGA was huge in this game.
Most definitely. There was a big reason why the Thunder won this game. And it just felt like Indiana, what could go wrong for Indiana went wrong. And OKC really just flipped that script on them. Being able to come back in a big way like that in the final minutes. If they can continue to do that, that was the one part of this series that I thought Indiana would attack. I thought their clutch minutes would be that would be Indiana's moment to come back and win close games. Any close game, when we were previewing this, I said that in any close games and clutch moments, I'm picking Indiana to win those games. For OKC to kind of flip that script and do it themselves, you got to hand it to SGA. This was a big moment for him. This was a turning point in his career, I would say. And this last night was a career-defining moment for him, because those are one of those moments that even if OKC lost that game, you would turn to him and say, "You did your thing, man. That was not your fault. Indiana was just better, and they squeezed out a win and escaped with that win." But for it to flip, Indiana going ice cold in that fourth quarter, like you said, 5 of 18 from the field, 0 for 8 from 3. That's pretty much unheard of from this Indiana Pacers team with the way that they're able to shoot the ball. But I also think it ties back to the Oklahoma City Thunder, their ability to play defense. Alex Caruso has been an absolute X factor in this series. Jalen Williams has played phenomenal. SGA was playing phenomenal defense. You saw Andrew Nembhard tried to shake SGA the same way he did in Game 1, hitting that fall-away 3. He tried to hit a fall-away jumper in the same way, And it didn't work this time. Why? Because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander played phenomenal defense in that moment. Those are little moments that are, especially in this series with how close everything is, those are difference makers. And the last thing I want to say, Alex Caruso with 5 steals last night. 5. If that can keep up, that tells the story right there. Holding Tyrese Halliburton to 18 points, having 5 steals in the game. It's a phenomenal defensive game, and this is why Oklahoma City's defense is renowned as one of the best in NBA history. Some people call it crazy, but just watch last night's game.
Certainly a storyline to follow going into Game 5 in Oklahoma City. Right now, we're going to take a short break on our show. When we come back, we're going to switch gears to the world of the gridiron and the NFL. Right? Stick around with us, though, and we'll be back on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Daley, alongside my co-host, good friend, Mehrob Fatemi. How we doing tonight on this beautiful Saturday evening? All right. I think we're going to have a solid show tonight. You know, it's just the two of us, the weekend crew. Loosen up a little, you know, it's not as tense as the week, so we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be going good. But right now, we're gonna switch gears after talking about the NBA. We're gonna go on to the NFL. But before I dive into anything related to the NFL, I just want to quickly remind everybody that this show, it's all about you. We love hearing your comments, your questions, your opinions. We want to make this show as interactive, as exciting as possible. Now, one easy way to do that if you're on YouTube, you can use the Super Chat feature. To use the Super Chat feature, all you have to do is click the $ at the bottom of the chat box, type in your message there, send that in. This guarantees that your message gets on the air, gets read live, and it's also just a great way to support our channel, support what we're doing here. If Super Chat's not your thing, you're not on YouTube, you can also go to gsmcpodcast.net to tip or donate there. So, let's talk a little bit about the NFL and what is going on in Cincinnati with Shamar Stewart and another holdout for the Bengals. Bengals first rounder Shamar Stewart, defensive end out of Texas A&M, has officially left their mandatory minicamp after expressing his displeasure with contract negotiations with the Cincinnati front office. Something that's pretty rare, especially when you consider that rookie deals are pretty standard. Since 2010, 2011, they kind of put in a very similar scale for rookie deals where, depending on what round you get picked in, that's pretty much what you get paid. Here's a rookie that apparently has issues with that contract. What can we make of this, Mehrob? What do you kind of think of everything that's going down in Cincinnati right now?
Yeah, say that the way you just described it is saying it nicely. Let's be real here. Cincinnati is a absolute mess with their GMing spot, with their financials across the board. It is an absolute train wreck over there. You have guys like Shamar Stewart, which recently is the biggest name out there, and a rookie just looking for a rookie deal, but they're adding clauses like if say he gets hurt in the next 2 years, you can automatically lose all your guaranteed money. What is that, man? You can go into the college. You can go into college portals into FCS schools and get better deals than that with NIL money. Seriously, you get better. You have opportunities to actually earn your money. And I'm not saying that he should do that. He's at the level. He may have had a little bit of a quieter career with only 4 sacks in this year's college season, but he is one of those. He's speedy. He's quick. He's agile. He's a great defensive end, and he's very young in the league. If you want to just give him like a $2 million, $3 million contract as a rookie deal per year, do that. And I think 31 other teams would do that. But for some reason in Cincinnati, it is just an absolute mess. You have guys, I brought up Shamar Stewart. I didn't bring up another guy in the name of Trey Hendrickson, who's also looking for a deal on his own. You also bring up a guy like Jermaine Pratt, who was looking for a deal, just got signed with Houston. They finally gave him his money because Cincinnati wouldn't. Why? It's such a mess with the financials over there that you even have a rookie in Shamar Stewart that's looking to possibly re-enter the NFL, the 2026 NFL draft, to terminate his time, to cut ties with Cincinnati and just say, we're just going to hit the undo button and go back to the NFL draft next year. That is how badly that they are treating him. And he's voicing his opinion, and I think he's very fair to do so. That's just my take.
Hey, fair enough. In terms of Shamar Stewart, I tend to disagree with kind of his valuation as a prospect. This is a guy that was drafted in the first round, and 4.5 sacks across his entire career in college, not just in one season. Across 3 collegiate years, this guy has only had 4.5 total sacks, yet was still a top 20 pick. So at that point, what are you complaining about, Shamar Stewart? You are already, I think, drafted higher than you probably should have been. It is kind of interesting, though, what this dispute seems to be more so about is the actual language. So in this case, in terms of what Cincinnati's kind of putting in each first rounder's contract. In 2023, when they drafted Myles Murphy out of Clemson, his clause was a little bit different than what they used in 2024 for Amarius Mims out of Georgia. Now, again, this year, they're trying to kind of change the language a little bit around what happens if there's a default on the contract. So this is all kind of really technical stuff, but it seems that this is something very minor to kind of get held up on. If you're Shamar Stewart, why do you think his camp in particular is saying that they don't want to sign with the Bengals?
I think if the rookie like this comes out and officially says, I'm cutting ties with the Cincinnati Bengals, I think it says to every other free agent out there, do not come to the Cincinnati Bengals and expect good things. Not that you won't expect success. You won't expect money, and you'll expect a lot of going tooth and nail, just trying to earn your money, earn your pay, earn your worth. For a guy like Shamar Stewart, you are completely right when you say that he did get drafted a little bit high. I just think there's a reason that some of these teams do that. Sometimes they just see talent. Sometimes they see small flashes, especially in combines. Shamar Stewart did go to a big school. He did have a great roster, and he had good opportunities to make the most of those chances. It is 100% valid to say that he got drafted a little bit high. What's not valid, though, is to not get paid at least like $2-3 million. What's not valid is to have your front office say, we want to put these small fine print that if you get injured or if you make some off the field mistake, we'll DFA your entire we'll DFA your entire contract. You'll lose all your guaranteed money and you won't be on the team anymore. Just for minor mistakes. These are guys that are just coming into the league, and injuries happen, especially in the NFL. We saw it this past year with the amount of injuries we saw, especially the last 3 years that the injuries have been on a little bit of an uptick. It happens. It's just part of the game. But I think as much as it does speak on Shamar Stewart, I think it looks worse on the Cincinnati Bengals, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in terms of looking bad for Cincinnati, I do agree with you in terms of that, just because you look at their other big-time contract dispute right now in Trey Hendrickson. That's another defensive end. So you drafted a guy in Shamar Stewart to potentially replace Trey Hendrickson. You knew that Trey Hendrickson was going to want a new contract, right? So I think that's probably part of the reason that you go out and draft a guy like Shamar Stewart is as a replacement for Trey Hendrickson. Now, you haven't signed Trey Hendrickson, and you haven't signed the replacement for Trey Hendrickson in Shamar Stewart. That just seems kind of short-sighted to me. And I really, really am curious on what's going to happen with this Bengals defense this year, just after going all in on the offensive side of the ball. When you have the two $30 million a year wide receivers and your quarterback, who's a top 10 paid quarterback in the NFL, there's not a lot of money left for the defensive side of the ball, especially if Shamar Stewart's not there, if Trey Hendrickson sits out. What is this Bengals defense going to look like?
It's going to look like a mess. It really is. It's going to look like a mess. You're going to most likely, I'm 95% sure the Cincinnati Bengals are going to lose Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson doesn't even want to be in Cincinnati anymore. With the amount of headache he's had to deal with that front office.
Can you blame that guy for not wanting to be in Cincinnati, though? I mean, 35 sacks over the past 2 years, and they refused to give him a new deal.
He's been phenomenal. He's been the heart and soul of that defense. If you think about why Cincinnati beat Kansas City all those years ago when Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl, you know why they did that? Because there was a guy by the name of Trey Hendrickson that chased him up and down the football field time and time again, down after down, and Patrick Mahomes couldn't do anything about it. He is a big reason why. Jermaine Pratt was a big reason why. And I still don't like that they let him go. But now you have a guy in Shamar Stewart, Trey's replacement. You're trying to put him on a younger deal. You're trying to cut some of the financials, give him give the replacement $3 million instead of giving the main guy $30 million a year. And you can't even do that. So I think this Bengals defense is going to be an absolute mess this year. I would not be shocked if we see an offense that's able to score 40 points while giving up 40 points a game. If you guys are playing fantasy football, be sure to have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in your starting lineup, because I promise you, either of them will have 25 fantasy points a game. Either of them. If you're smart, you put both. Yes, that's probably what I'm looking to do. Hopefully none of my buddies are looking at this. Now I just spoiled my first-round picks. But when we're looking at this right now, this is a Bengals team that is a mess. You have an offense that's high-powered, efficient, one of the top 10 offenses in the league. But you have a defense that is just reeling, looking for anything, any star talent that is relying on basically a bunch of I'm not trying to be rude, but a bunch of practice squad guys, a bunch of backups. You don't have star talent. So it's unfortunate, especially for a team like the Bengals in a competitive division. This might be an unfortunate year for the Bengals, and this should be a sign to everybody in the NFL not to do what the Bengals did with their offense.
Yeah, and we're just going to have to wait and see what this lopsided Cincinnati team is going to end up looking like. But just like us, we're going to wait, and we're going to take a short break on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Stick around. When we come back, we'll be talking some NBA and the Knicks. Who's going to be their next head coach? Stick with us. We're going to discuss it when we come back on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I just realized I left my segment title on throughout our break, but that's okay. We're rolling with the punches today on this Saturday, June 14th. Your host, Jake Daley, alongside my co-host, Mehrob Fatemi. All right, let's get into your sport in the NBA. Talk about the New York Knicks. Reportedly to talk to Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown. Mehrob, what do you kind of think about these two potential options for the Knicks in their search for a brand new head coach?
Well, I'm happy that they finally decided to request an interview for Taylor Jenkins, because that looked like one of those obvious sitting on the table. Taylor Jenkins, a guy that was in Memphis, that kind of turned that organization around from the dog days of Zach Randolph and Mike Conley, bringing in John Morant, bringing in Jaren Jackson Jr., and building that talent up, bringing them all the way to the second round of the playoffs. And honestly, they would have probably gone to the conference finals in 2022 if it wasn't for the Golden State Warriors getting in their way, who ultimately went to the NBA Finals and won the NBA championship. This is a team in the Memphis Grizzlies that's been in the top 3 of the Western Conference the last 3 years. This is a Memphis Grizzlies team that was in second place of the Western Conference before Taylor Jenkins got fired. And it was a big reason why we were all completely shocked and just taken by surprise that the Memphis Grizzlies would even think about doing that. I think his style kind of fits. It would be interesting to see what he would do with a Jalen Brunson and a Karl-Anthony Towns at his disposal. Say they bring in a Kevin Durant as well. That would be even more interesting. But I think that's if there's a guy that's left on the market that I'm kind of eyeing, if I'm the New York Knicks, it's Taylor Jenkins. You can say Mike Malone, but if it's between Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown, I'm picking Taylor Jenkins personally.
Yeah, and you talk about Taylor Jenkins. I mean, obviously a really talented head coach, a guy that is Memphis's all-time wins leader, who did that in just 6 seasons there. And obviously the way the Grizzlies kind of finished the season after they fired Taylor Jenkins, it didn't do anything to hurt Taylor Jenkins' reputation, right? You saw what that team was like without Taylor Jenkins guiding them at the helm. I will say, though, Mike Brown, this is a guy that I think is a little underrated in terms of this search. One thing, too, I think is going to be an underrated facet here is that he has a really close relationship with Knicks executive vice president, William Wesley. This dates back to the mid-2000s when Mike Brown was the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. William Wesley was kind of one of LeBron James's guys. So they've gone all the way back to when Mike Brown coached LeBron back in the mid-2000s. And Mike Brown, a guy that has really kind of built himself up as a coaching candidate, was the lead assistant on those Warriors teams under Steve Kerr, and then was hired by the Kings and really had a solid run in Sacramento. Became coach of the year in his first season there, helped them end their playoff drought, and then the wheels kind of fell off a little bit, but I think he was fired a little prematurely. That was my opinion. I wouldn't discount Mike Brown here as a potential option for New York. What do you kind of think about that?
Definitely, I 100% agree with you. This is a guy, Mike Brown, like you said, coached LeBron James, a guy that coached under Steve Kerr in Golden State prior to joining the Sacramento Kings. And it was a big reason why Sacramento was willing to take him, because of that experience with Steve Kerr, winning 2 championships in there. Was not there in 2015, but was there in 2018 and 2019. This is Mike Brown that brought the Light the Beam chat, reawakened Sacramento in Kings Nation. Honestly, I agree with you. However, he was there when Tyrese Halliburton got traded to the Indiana Pacers. He was there when they decided to part ways with De'Aaron Fox. Okay, that might be a little premature. I don't know if the second part was true. But he was definitely there when Tyrese Halliburton got traded. And that was a big reason why I think there was a little bit of locker room friction between him and De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. You're seeing Domantas Sabonis starting to publicly express his disapproval with how they've treated him over there. When I'm looking at Mike Brown, I like him as a coach. I think he's good when you have good talent. I just don't know if he can handle that New York spotlight, and that is going to play a big role in this market. Who ends up getting this job is going to need to have a name for himself. Taylor Jenkins has a name for himself. Mike Malone has a name for himself. We were even bringing Jim Wright into the conversation. Why? Because he coached at Villanova and won national championships and hasn't been in the NBA, hasn't shown his face in coaching since. We don't know why, but I think we always thought New York would be a good spot for him. Why? Because he has that experience. He's going into the New York market, into a big market. He might want to coach that team. You're going to need to be able to survive that tsunami, because when things start going wrong, you're going to hear it everywhere, because that spotlight will be on you and that hot seat will be burning like it's sitting in a volcano. So all of that together, I'm just worried Mike Brown won't be able to handle that. And I think that's a big reason why I don't see him as one of those top candidates. If some of the top candidates fade out, I would not be shocked if he gets up there. But there's some candidates above him there's some candidates I would put over him.
The one thing I think is kind of interesting, too, with this whole situation, so New York, they fired Tibbs, obviously, and then it kind of seems like they didn't really have a plan after that. It seemed like they had a couple names in mind of potential targets, but there wasn't a clear-cut, we're going to go get this guy. Unless they're waiting on somebody that I just haven't seen yet, it doesn't seem like New York really has kind of gone through this coaching process with a plan. You look at all the guys that they got denied to interview. Quinn Snyder, Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka, Chris Finch. New York put in requests to interview all of those guys and got denied by every single organization, which I'm not super surprised by. But still, it just seems like New York didn't really kind of have a plan once they fired Tom Thibodeau. Do you see it that way, or do you kind of think that they do actually have one target right now in mind?
I think their plan was trying to steal somebody from these other teams by requesting interviews, and I think I speak for everybody in America saying you are absolutely crazy if you think any of these big-name coaches are going to move off of their coaches just so they can go interview for your team, even though they're under contract for our team. I know you said that. I know Jeremy said that. I know Nolan said that. Everybody I've talked to has said the same thing. I think I did not really like that they fired Tom Thibodeau personally, just because I think he used what they gave him. That he worked with what he had. His bench was his Achilles heel, and you say that he wouldn't have even used it if it was good anyway. I get it, but if it was good, he would have used it. let's be real here. If the Indiana Pacers are going 10-man deep into their rotation, even Tom Thibodeau tried to do that by putting DeLon Wright in, the rookie that they just brought in this past year that didn't really get that many minutes. And what did he do? Get into foul trouble early. Andrew Nembhard picked him apart. And next thing you know, Indiana's going on a run in the third quarter. And you can't use him. So it's unfortunate. Tibbs tried to use what he could. He didn't use it in the regular season. I got it. People were calling for his job in the regular season. I get it. He did come out and beat the Detroit Pistons, something I didn't even think they could do. He did come out and beat the Boston Celtics after going 0 for 4 against them in the regular season. He beat them in 6 games. That has to mean something. He went up against the Indiana Pacers and pushed the series to 6 games. That has to mean something. I understand they should have won. If they had lost to Boston, I get it. But he he beat the defending champs, and he did his job. He just ran into a brick wall, and the other team was he got outmatched. It's just unfortunate, but it's just the way that it shaked out.
Yeah, and you talk about, I think one of the big kind of conversations around Tom Thibodeau is the fact that it almost seems like his teams are limited. Their ceilings are limited. But I also kind of question, who's a coach out there right now that can raise the ceiling of this New York team? Or do they have to change the composition of the Knicks roster? Do we have to move off of Mikal Bridges? Do you move off of Karl-Anthony Towns? What do you do for New York to make this a championship roster?
Well, I think if they got rid of Mikal Bridges after 1 year, Leon Rose would be on the hottest seat of all time. He would be. I can't even compare him to any GM I've ever seen, because if you are able to give up 5 first-round picks to the Brooklyn Nets, not only to anybody else, to the Brooklyn Nets, and then you give up that guy after 1 year, New York would go up in flames calling for Leon Rose's dismissal from the Knicks. It's unfortunate, but it's how it would shake out. He might just be untouchable for that reason. Karl-Anthony Towns, as much as I love him, as much as I hate him with his back against the basket, I think he has the footwork of a child sometimes. No disrespect, Cat. You have the best shot of any big man in basketball. But I think that shooting makes him very valuable in the league, especially with the new style of the NBA. And I think if it keeps coming, I think there's a reason why there's rumors of Kevin Durant being added to this team, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But there's a reason those rumors are real. There's a reason Jimmy Butler's rumors were real when Miami was trying to get rid of him. They are trying to dial up this team. They're trying to beef up this roster, trying to make it a little bit of a deeper team. And they don't really mind going up into that luxury tax apron if they have to. They want to pay these guys. They want to try and capture a championship. But what you have to do that is you have to load up that roster. I don't mean the starting lineup. I mean make it deep enough to match up with the Indiana Pacers, because this is the new style of the NBA, unfortunately. Not even unfortunately, just how it is.
Yeah, I think whoever New York hires, it's certainly going to be a ton of spotlight put onto that head coach just with this roster and what they kind of were built to be. They were built to beat Boston. They beat Boston. Are they built to win an NBA championship? I'm not really sure if they are right now. I don't know if I'm going to put all of my poker chips towards the New York Knicks at this moment. But it's certainly going to be an interesting conversation, and we're going to have to just see who ends up being their new head coach. I don't know if it's going to be one of these old veterans or if it's a newer, younger assistant. I think that's also very much a possibility still at this point, but we're just going to have to wait and see. But right now, we are going to take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to keep rolling on this NBA train and talk a little more about the finals and some potential X factors for Game 5. So stick around and stick with us. We'll be right back on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast. I don't know why I'm saying welcome back to another edition, because we're already in the middle of our show, but that's all right. We're going to keep moving on. You know, it's been kind of an interesting day today already, Mehrob. You know, just we're not really in the flow of things. We're a little off. We're getting there, though. We're getting there. We're kind of settling in. And
hey man, it's your first time setting up this new style podcast.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on. But what better way to settle in than by continuing to talk about the NBA Finals and some potential X factors. I think, obviously, we've talked about this series a ton already on the GSMC Sports Podcast, but why not continue to talk about it? If you're looking at this series, who do you think, Mehrob, are some of these potential X factors going into a crucial Game 5 in Oklahoma City?
Number one has to be Tyrese Halliburton. He did kind of have one of those. He had a decent game. He did show up, had 18 points, had double-digit assists, went off for a double-double. But when you're looking at this team as a whole, it really looked like they ran out of gas at the end of this game. And whether you want to say that the Thunder took Tyrese Halliburton out of the game, regardless, he's the star guy on the team. And what he's been doing in this series, all series long, he shows up in the fourth quarter and goes ballistic. And that's what he's done time after time, except for last night. So I'm looking for him to have a little bit of a bounce back game. He's my first X factor. Number two has to go to Pascal Siakam. He has to be one of those guys that when Tyrese Halliburton starts to fade away a little bit, he shows up and starts cleaning it up. Not cleaning it up exactly, but just trying to take some of that pressure off of Tyrese when that shot isn't falling. We saw some of that at the end of Game 4, like I said, but Siakam did not show up in that fourth quarter. He did have 20 points in this game and was the leading scorer of this Pacers squad, but he did not show up in that fourth quarter, and he was missing some easy gimme shots that we see him making time after time. We see him getting the better of Chet Holmgren. This time around, it was the opposite way. If he needs to show up in a big way, he's my second X factor. After that, I'm going to give the third X factor to the entire bench of the Indiana Pacers. Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell, especially in Game 3, was an X factor. Obi Toppin, the X factor of Game 1, going off for 5 threes. Benedict Mathurin being the X factor of Game 3. Across the board, these are guys, even Aaron Nesmith, across the board, when you look at this team, they are so deep. There are so many guys on this Pacers bench that can go off whenever they want to for 10, 15 points. And that's what they're going to need from them in a Game 5 in OKC. They're going to be on the road. They're going to have their backs against the walls. I expect Tyrese Halliburton, I expect the stars to show up. If one guy on the bench can go off for like an Aaron Wiggins style 20 points, like an Obi Toppin style 20 points, 18 points, I think Indiana can pull this one out in Game 5 and send it back to Indiana with a 3-2 lead.
I think it's kind of a little cheating to just take the entire bench here. I mean, come on, you know, you can't take like 8 guys. But
I'm only taking 4.
Hey, fair enough. I think 2 other guys too. I think for Indiana, Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard need to play much better than they did in Game 4, especially in the fourth quarter of that Game 4, going a combined 1 for 7. These are two guys that are integral to this Indiana offense, that they can do so much. They bring so much spacing and are able to kind of spread that floor out for Indiana, for Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, some of these other guys to attack these lanes. A lot of it is because of the spacing and the deep threats that Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith kind of bring to the table. I think for Indiana, those two guys are going to be crucial in terms of stepping up and being better than they were in Game 4. I'm also looking at, you mentioned TJ McConnell. I think TJ McConnell versus a guy who's very similar to him in Alex Caruso for Oklahoma City. Who kind of wins that battle? In the past 2 games, TJ McConnell had 5 steals. Game 3, Alex Caruso says, "Hello, sir, I can do that too." Does that in Game 4. So you have two guys that both can make a big impact as kind of a supplementary playmaker, a big defensive presence too at the guard position. I think those two guys, it's going to be an interesting battle. Who kind of comes out on top in the terms of kind of those reserve guards?
In terms of reserve guards, I'm looking at 2 guys in particular. On the Thunder side, I'm looking at Aaron Wiggins that showed up in Game 2 and went off for 20 points. He's been a little bit quiet here in Game 3 and Game 4. I expect him to show up big in Game 5 the way he can and usually does. He does it more sporadically when you least expect it. This is one of those times that I'm looking at him to step up in a big way. For the Indiana Pacers, this isn't as much of a reserve guy, but I'm looking at Andrew Nembhard, like you said, to step up in a big way. Not only defensively, but offensively. When he can get his 3-ball going, Andrew Nembhard is lethal on the offensive side of the ball, taking pressure off of Tyrese Halliburton, getting guys around him open, like Aaron Nesmith. They're all around this team. He takes so much pressure off of the Indiana Pacers, and he becomes a little bit of a secondary facilitator, similar to Jalen Williams' role on the Oklahoma City Thunder. If he can step up in a big way, we haven't really seen him show up like that. We've seen some shots in big moments, for example, Game 1, but we haven't seen him show up and show out in the big moment. I'm looking at those 2 guys, particularly as reserve guards, to come out and play big roles in Game 5.
And talking about another guy you just mentioned, Jalen Williams. How about a guy who really is a big X factor in this series? 27 points in Game 4 for that Thunder win on the road. But we've seen him kind of be a little uneven throughout this entire series. Hasn't really performed up to what we have grown accustomed to seeing out of J-Dub. What are we looking for Jalen Williams to do in this Game 5? What could we potentially see from Jalen Williams and from Chet Holmgren as well? We're going to throw both of those 2 out of that other big 3 in there. What can we see out of Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren going into Game 5?
For Jalen Williams, I'm looking at him to continue to step up. I want to just tell you these stats really quick because he's been phenomenal this series. Going back, like I said before this entire series started, Jalen Williams had a big Western Conference Finals. I was looking at him in the Denver series, and I was saying, this is supposed to be the secondary option. 2 for 14, 1 for 10 from the field, 4, 5, 7, 9 points in games. That is not the normal Jalen Williams that we're used to seeing in the regular season, going off for 30, 40 points sometimes. That is not the normal Jalen Williams. He comes out in the Western Conference Finals, averages over 20 a game, and I said this was a big turning point, not only for him, but the entire big 3 of Oklahoma City. We looked at the entire depth, and we said they have great depth, but outside of Shai, they don't have another secondary threat to attack. If you take Shai out of the picture of Oklahoma City, they become very one-dimensional, and they don't really have a guy to step into that role. Now we see guys like Jalen Williams step up, like Chet Holmgren step up. Chet's still trying to figure it out, but let me just bang off some stats here for Jalen Williams. 17 in game 1, 19 in game 2, 26 in game 3, and then 27 in game 4. He hasn't been very efficient. We've seen some 5 of 14, some 8 of 18s like last night, some 6 of 19s. But 7 rebounds, 6 rebounds, 5 assists in some games. Like, this is a guy that shows up in big moments and is very versatile and it isn't just a scorer, but is becoming a distributor as well, working and playing very well off of Shai in these big moments, taking some of that pressure off of him. I've seen him show up on the defensive end of the floor time and time again with steals. I've seen him score the basketball very well, getting to the free throw line. As much as I got on him in Game 3, and he looked like he cleaned that up a little bit after Game 3 at the free throw stripe. But he's looking like one of those guys that is going to continue to show up, and if he does that, the Thunder as long as Jalen Williams keeps playing like this, I don't see the Thunder losing this series. Maybe that's a part of the Pacers. Maybe that's an area that the Pacers should look to try and take away from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Try and take Jalen Williams out of the picture if they can. It's easier said than done, but Jalen Williams has definitely been an X factor in this series, and I'm looking at him to continue to show up as a number 2 option.
Yeah, and then I just want to mention some X factors too that aren't necessarily players, but I think whoever team is better in terms of discipline and in terms of maintaining composure is going to have a much better chance to win Game 5 and then this series. You look at discipline. Free throws was a big part of the story in Game 4. Oklahoma City getting to the line and shooting 38 free-throw attempts, making 34 of those. Indiana getting there 33 times, but not being as efficient. And then I think Indiana having to go into Oklahoma City in a really big Game 5, that's going to be tough. And are they going to be able to maintain their composure against that road crowd, being in that tough environment? Is Indiana going to be able to do that? I think composure and discipline are 2 kind of underrated aspects of this series.
Sorry, what was the question? You cut out on your mic for some reason. Literally, I don't know what happened.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just saying that I think composure and discipline are going to be huge for this series. And just in terms of getting to the free throw line, in terms of playing in road environments, I think that's going to be really big. And who is going to be the better team, better squad in maintaining their discipline, their composure?
As a whole, I think we have to give that to the Indiana Pacers. Why? Because they're coached by a guy that's now in his 6th NBA final in Rick Carlisle, and he was my X factor before this series began. I still think he's an X factor, but it really looks like right now, especially after last night, last night has really changed my perspective of this entire series. I thought the clutch minutes of this series was going to go to Indiana. Indiana would be able to close games. Indiana's able to come back in games because they have the coach to be able to do so, and they have that experience from the coach just spreads like a virus, and a good virus, to the rest of the team. It's a good thing. It's the same way what happened with Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler. And I'm not comparing Tyrese Halliburton to Jimmy Butler now. I know some people would crucify me if I said that. But Tyrese Halliburton has really played on a high level throughout the series, but he did not show up last night. In terms of composure, it was SGA. It was the Oklahoma City Thunder as a whole. Looking forward in this series, I still want to lean toward Indiana. But do not be shocked in some of these games. I'm not counting out. I'm guessing what I'm saying is I'm not counting Oklahoma City out as much as I was in close games, like I did last night, or similar like I did in Game 1, like I did in Game 4. I really thought we were going to come into today talking about how Indiana came out with the win, talking about how this was a 3-1 series, and for it to be completely flipped the opposite direction, really not only tells you how crazy this series is, but tells you how unbelievable this NBA Finals has been.
Yeah, certainly a lot to look forward to in Game 5 and throughout the rest of this NBA Finals. But right now, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears. We're going to rotate off of the NBA for a little bit, and we're going to go back to the NFL and talk about some quarterback battles, some quarterback competitions to keep your eye out on going into the summer. But stick with us, and we'll be right back on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast. I just did that again. I don't know why I'm doing the intro like we're not an hour into our show already. But welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. That was a little better. Okay, pat myself on the back there. But we're rolling on. We're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about the NFL and some big-time quarterback competitions to kind of keep your eye out throughout the spring and the summer. I think the most interesting one, it's got to be in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, where you have, I don't even know how to describe this quarterback room, something out of a movie. You have two rookies, one who was in college for like 9 years, one whose dad is one of the most famous NFL players of all time, and then you have a former first-round flameout, then you have, a 40-year-old former Super Bowl champion who is beloved by these fans and may actually be the best quarterback on this roster. Mehrob, what do you kind of think of what's going on with this Browns quarterback situation and what we could potentially see out of the Browns?
I'm laughing because it's so funny when you actually lay it all out.
I mean, it's all true. It's. I didn't say anything false.
You have famous guy. You have the guy that's been in that has the most college experience of all time, and then you have the 40-year-old. The former Super Bowl champion like a decade and a half ago, just sitting in the starting role right now.
And don't forget Kenny Pickett there. Don't forget Kenny Pickett too.
I'm sorry, I forgot about Kenny. I think Pittsburgh forgot about Kenny Pickett, man. Oh my, this is a quarterback room that is straight out of a sitcom, straight out of The Simpsons. I'm serious. It is so funny. And it's funnier because you would think that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers room, but it's not. It's the Cleveland Browns. The Browns continuing to be the Browns. I know you're from Cleveland and you've been a lifelong Browns fan. I'm so sorry that you have been. I respect to you that you have and continue to stand by them the way you have. But the Cleveland Browns continue to do Cleveland Brown things. They do look like they have some bright future there. But I'm hoping you have a bright future when you have two rookie quarterbacks and then Kenny Pickett. And then, of course, you have Joe Flacco, where these rookies can learn from a guy that has so much experience in the NFL, a former NFL champion with the Baltimore Ravens years and years ago, but nonetheless, it is Joe Flacco, and he's one of those guys that's been a trailblazer as one of those guys that you just throw into the starting lineup and he'll win you games. He's won some crazy games throughout the last few years. He doesn't really do it too often. He has been a little bit inconsistent, but you do see those 40-point Cleveland Brown wins when they beat the Baltimore Ravens, when they beat the Miami Dolphins, when they beat some of the Titans of the NFL. And you just sit there and you're just baffled because it's Joe Flacco. He's just not consistent. And you as much as you wish him to be, he has had some injuries. But I think when I'm looking at this quarterback room, it's pretty much undeniable that we put Joe Flacco in to start the year. But after that is when things get a little bit interesting. You have Shedeur Sanders waiting in the wings. You have Dylan Gabriel that's sitting back there, the guy from Oregon that's been there for years. Bo Nix 2.0, if you want to call him. Bo Nix was in college until he was 24, 25 years old. It's looking like Dylan Gabriel is the second coming of that. I just think I personally am leaning towards Shedeur Sanders picking up that backup role. As shocking as it was to see him fall to the 5th round, he has shocked some people in Cleveland so far throughout minicamp and has been he's been interesting to watch. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I think the final verdict will come in the preseason when we see Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders start squaring off against real NFL defenses in actual games. But before then, for a pre-prediction, I'm kind of rolling with Shedeur, and I would not be shocked if we see Joe Flacco start falling off, or hopefully he doesn't, but get injured once again, and we see Shedeur start getting plugged in around week 6 through week 8 is my early estimation.
I think it's certainly very possible, and a lot of what I've been hearing out of Cleveland and out of kind of these local beat reporters is that the Browns coaching staff and front office has been very impressed by Shedeur Sanders throughout this spring offseason. He's made enough impressive throws. He's been attentive in rooms, been open to kind of growing and learning under Joe Flacco, some of these veteran leaders on this Browns roster. I think they're very impressed with Shedeur Sanders. I will say I wouldn't be surprised, though, to kind of see something where maybe Dylan Gabriel is actually the number 2, and Shedeur is kind of the number 3. But then when there's a time where Joe Flacco gets hurt or has to get pulled, it might be a little more of a conversation then. I think, though, if you're kind of looking at experience and just what these quarterbacks bring to the table, also the fact that Dylan Gabriel was drafted before Shedeur Sanders, a prospect that pretty much every NFL front office had behind Shedeur Sanders. Dylan Gabriel, he was the 3rd-round quarterback, not Shedeur Sanders. I think that does say something about what this Browns front office kind of thinks of him. So I wouldn't count him out yet. But another kind of interesting competition is the New Orleans Saints, with a rookie quarterback of their own in Tyler Shuck, battling Spencer Rattler after the surprise retirement of Derek Carr. What do you kind of see happening here in New Orleans to start this year?
I haven't seen too much news out of New Orleans yet, so I'm going to defer to you really quick, Jake. Has there been any news about that QB battle yet between Rattler and Shog?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think Tyler Shuck probably, you would think he's the early front runner here, being the 2nd-round pick, being a guy that's already 25, 26 years old. He's a little more seasoned, a little more polished than some of these other rookie quarterbacks. But there's a lot of people in this building that do like Spencer Rattler, former 4th-round pick, a guy that has started multiple games for the Saints and has shown enough where there's people in that building that really like him. This was a guy that, if you look at his pedigree as a former 5-star prospect, guy that was on the Netflix show QB1, I don't know if you ever watched that before,
I did watch that
Will
episode. I
say,
forgot about
wasn't a fan of Spencer Rattler on that show, but the talent there with Spencer Rattler was clear. So I think that's going to be an interesting one where both of those guys are pretty young and both have a legitimate shot. I would probably say Tyler Shuck has the edge there. Indianapolis, I think this is an interesting one too, with Daniel Jones. And then, the former top 5 pick, Anthony Richardson, one of Jeremy's favorite archetypes over there. What do you think could happen in Indianapolis, especially considering the news that Anthony Richardson is out indefinitely? We don't know how long he's not going to throw. He has a shoulder injury, so he's out indefinitely. What do you think is going to happen with Indianapolis?
Yeah, Indianapolis is in a really tough spot. You look at Anthony Richardson, a former top 3 pick in the NFL draft, one of those guys that you looked at and you saw Cam Newton-esque guy, a guy after Lamar Jackson that was, when we saw Lamar Jackson enter the league and take the league by storm, and you saw the next guy in Anthony Richardson, you're like, Indianapolis is going to be one of those next teams in the NFL, one of those big name teams. And I was one of them. In my fantasy league, I drafted Anthony Richardson, and I was a big fan of him. I know fantasy football is not really like NFL, but it proves that I personally thought he was going to do really well in Indianapolis. It just really hurts to watch a player of that caliber, of that talent level, dealing with the amount of injuries that he's had to deal with. 2 season-ending injuries so far in his career. He now has a shoulder injury that he's already been labeled to be out indefinitely. Will he be back by the time the regular season starts? We haven't seen any news on it yet, and in my estimation, I don't think so, because this is one of those injuries, an AC joint issue, which not only does it require surgery, but it's one of those problems that just lingers, and it comes back every time you take those hits and you fall on that shoulder. It will come back every time that you take a helmet to that shoulder. It will come back every time he tries to scramble out of the pocket. He will be cautious and he will be nervous because he will think of that shoulder injury. We've seen injuries like this cripple players, and we just saw a guy by the name of Derek Carr, which we were just talking about, retire because of a shoulder injury. So all of that coming together, this is a guy that I really feel bad for, and this is an organization in Indianapolis that is reeling, that is begging for something at the QB position. You now have a guy in Daniel Jones that you're pretty much 80% of the way of handing the baton over to, and a guy that miraculously made the playoffs 2 years ago, but since has not done much. They do have a little bit of an offense. They do have a great running back there with the Colts, but it just doesn't look like unless he can be a good game. He has to be a good game manager over there in Indiana. He's gonna have to figure out how to evade the pocket, how to step up in the pocket, how to stop taking unnecessary sacks, which he has a big. Some people have a turnover problem, then other people have a sack problem. Daniel Jones is one of those guys that doesn't know when to throw the ball away. And sometimes that's a good thing. But when you take too many sacks, not only do you get injured with concussions, which Daniel Jones has a problem with, but it's not a good trait to have as a quarterback. So I feel really bad for the Colts as a whole. I don't really know what they have to do, what they can do to turn this around.
Yeah, the Colts situation is, I don't envy them. I will say that. I was never one of the biggest Anthony Richardson fans. Yes, he had flashes at Florida, but also never completed more than 55% of his passes. Never really kind of seemed to be developed as a quarterback and as a passer. That's kind of one of my big sticking points when I'm looking at quarterback development. Anthony Richardson just never had that. So I wasn't necessarily super surprised to see him struggle. And then when you consider now with all of these injuries, I think it's very unlikely that Anthony Richardson ever ends up being an above average starting quarterback in the NFL for a long time. Now I could see this maybe being a half a season or so where he kind of has glimpses of that talent. I just don't know if we're ever going to fully see that, but their other option in Daniel Jones, it's not super exciting either. So Indianapolis, it's a tough situation to be in right now. We're going to just have to wait and see, though, kind of what happens. Whether Anthony Richardson will actually throw a football this year, that's a big question mark still. But it's just kind of going to be a wait and see. And we're just going to be here sitting on the sidelines waiting to talk about it. Right now, we're going to take another short break. And when we come back, we're going to switch gears and get into the other big-time series that's going on. Absolute barn burner in the Stanley Cup. We're going to dive into what's been happening and preview that game tonight. I'm assuming it already started, but
We'll take a peek over here.
we will check on that when we take our
2-0
break.
Panthers in the first period right now.
2-0 Panthers, so we're going to talk about that and kind of preview maybe the rest of this game and the rest of this series. So stick with us. We'll be right back on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. On this Saturday, June 14th, we're going to switch gears and talk about a lot of fun in the NHL and the Stanley Cup. Rob, what's been going on? Have you been kind of keeping up? Did you look at this while we were on break? What's going on? Fill me in to all the action on the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, we are looking at a 2-0 lead right now for the Florida Panthers. Right in the middle of our break, it looked like Florida just scored, so I was not able to see exactly who scored. I'm going to check it out right now. But Brad Marchand scoring his, now what is this, his fifth goal? Fifth goal in 4 games now. He scored in 4 out of the 5 games, and he has been an absolute killer for this Florida Panthers team. A guy that they brought in before the trade deadline from my hometown in Boston, from the Boston Bruins, a guy that I watched play and I grew up watching. And as heartbroken as I was to see him go and not finish his career in Boston, the second I saw it, I threw my hands up and I said, Florida is going to win the championship again. Because that is how good Brad Marchand is. He is a clutch performer that shows up in the moment. In the biggest moments, you count on him to show up every single time because he's able to elevate his game to those moments. This is a guy that won a Stanley Cup in 2011, a guy that went to a Stanley Cup in 2019, a guy that had these same Florida Panthers reeling down 3-1 3 years ago in 2022. The Panthers ended up coming back in that series. But this is a guy in Brad Marchand that showed up time and time again for the Bruins, and I am not remotely shocked that he's still doing it at the ripe age of just, what is he, 38 now? He's getting up there with age, but he is so experienced. He is so good on the ice, and he is 37 years old. 37 years old, and he's able to do this. My goodness. So this is a massive game. This is a game that I expected the Edmonton would come out and take by storm. Game 5 on their home ice after coming back, scoring 4 unanswered goals in Game 4, ultimately winning Game 4 in overtime. I thought Calvin Pickard would show up in a big moment. Once again, he's in net to start the game for the Oilers, which I'm not shocked about. But through one, there's 10 seconds left in the period, so unless something crazy happens, 9 shots against, 2 goals, 7 saves in one period. It's not over, but the Oilers are in a tough spot once again, putting themselves with that goaltending position, putting them at a disadvantage. And I said it before the playoffs started. I thought Stuart Skinner was going to be the Achilles heel of this Edmonton Oilers team. You put in the backup, and it looks like the same story. It's unfortunate, but Panthers up 2-0 to start this game.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, honestly, that it is 2-0 Florida right now. Just because it seemed like all the momentum heading into this Game 5 was on the side of the Oilers in Edmonton. You look at the odds in Vegas, too. Heading into Game 4, Panthers were minus 260 favorites to win the Stanley Cup. Oilers were at plus 215. Heading into tonight's game, Game 5, both teams were minus 110. I think that shows you, too, if you're a betting fan at all, kind of know the numbers there, that's a really big swing. Shows you the momentum kind of went back to Edmonton's side after going down 3-0, being able to climb back and being able to just make that a series, a 2-2 series. It's
really quick.
Yeah.
You want to hear something funny? One of my roommates from this past year that I just graduated college, he sent me a photo that he bet on the Edmonton Oilers down 3-0 at plus 1,600. We all looked at him like, what are you doing? And 15 minutes later, we're like, are you just Houdini now that you know what's going to happen in the future? I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I thought that was really funny.
That's a little nice little side note. It's a little side story. But no, I agree. It seemed like this was going to be Edmonton's game from the jump. But early on, 2-0 Florida, kind of seems like that's not going to be the case. Are we going to see another one of this magical Edmonton Oiler comeback victories in this Game 5? Down 2-0 already, but you're at home, and you've done it 7-8 times already in just this playoff run. What do you think, Mehrob? Are we going to see another Edmonton comeback victory tonight?
There's a team to do it. It is the Edmonton Oilers, a team that's come back. What is this? They've done it 8 times so far in these playoffs. They have been the comeback kids. They've continued to do it time and time again. They've done it twice in these playoffs. They did it in Game 1, and they did it in Game 4. Can they do it once again? I'm leaning towards no, just because I think the Panthers are just a better, more skilled team on paper, all around a better team. If they're going to do it, Connor McDavid still yet to score his first goal in the series. When will Connor McDavid wake up? Has it been the defense? It's definitely been some part due to the defense of the Florida Panthers. To Matthew Tkachuk, to Sam Bennett, to Sam Reinhart, they've all played phenomenally on that back line. But at some point or another, you are the best player on this team. As much as I love Leon Draisaitl, you are the best player on this team. And Leon Draisaitl has been phenomenal in this series as well. But Connor McDavid needs to show up at some point. If there's a moment for him, Game 5 on your home ice, you can go back to Florida with a 3-2 lead. This is a perfect time. If you lose this game going back to Florida, in my estimation, the series ends in 6 games. In Florida, closeout game, I'm not expecting Florida to lose. The former champions, I don't see them doing. The defending champions, I don't expect them to lose. So I think this is a must-win game. If they need to come back to have a chance in this one.
Mehrob, you read my mind because I was going to bring up Connor McDavid and his scoring drought. This is a guy that I think we can pretty much all agree he's the best player in the NHL. If anybody else says differently, I mean, go ahead and disagree with me, but I don't know. I think it's pretty clear that this guy, he's something special in terms of the hockey world. I think there's a lot of credit here to Alexander Barkov too, the Florida Panthers captain. He's been able to shut down Connor McDavid when he's been on the ice. I agree though. I think it does kind of feel like it's almost inevitable. When's McDavid going to score? It seems like every single game, every period, it's just like we're just itching, biting, just waiting for Connor McDavid to get that first goal in the Stanley Cup. When do we think it's going to happen? Do you think it's going to happen? I mean, it just seems like he's too good for him not to score at some point. But again, this Florida team, they're really, really good in their own right. So do you think McDavid is able to break through the scoring drought?
I think it's just inevitable. He's just one of those guys that he's inevitable to score that goal. It's going to happen eventually. The question is when. He's been an assist machine in these playoffs. He has, I think, he is well over 5 assists in this series, but he has assists in this game as well. Actually, he had an assist last game as well. But when we're looking at this team as a whole, he needs to step up in these moments. It is waning into the series. The pressure is building. Every moment already matters. Every moment has mattered in this series because every game has been so unbelievably close. 3 overtime games in this series already, and we haven't even entered Game 5 or any of the closeout games. I expect him to show up at some point. This would be a big moment for him if he did. I would be beyond shocked if he didn't. I guess that's what I'm saying. I would be beyond shocked if he did not.
So let's say this current score line holds for Game 5. Say Florida ends up winning, going up 3-2. What do you think Edmonton can do at that point to stay in this series and potentially bring that cup home to Canada for the first time in over 30 years?
I think how would it happen, or would it happen? Are you asking? Like, how would they be able to do it?
Either, both. If they could, and do you think,
I'm going to say the same thing. Connor McDavid needs to show up if the Oilers want to win this series. He is the powerhouse. He has been the powerhouse as much as you want to give it to Leon Draisaitl, and I love him. He's one of the shot makers. He's been a marksman this year. Finished second in the MVP race behind Connor Hellebuyck. But this is a guy in Connor McDavid that I 100% agree. He is the best player in the NHL this year. He's one of the I've never seen a guy that's able to handle the puck the way he has. Not only handle the puck, I've never seen a guy handle a ball, playing soccer, running on their feet, never mind skating on ice the way that Connor McDavid is able to. The speed, the handles. Sometimes I'm amazed at how he does it in slow motion, never mind when he's going full speed ahead. He is amazing in every single way. He just needs to keep getting pucks on the net. The guys around him, Dustin Nugent-Hopkins, I expect to continue to show up. Evan Hubbard, I expect to continue to show up. And of course, Leon Draisaitl will continue to he will still continue to score goals like he has in this series. He has at least 5, if not 6. I think he has 6 in this series right now, off the top of my head. But it comes down to Connor McDavid, and the Oilers need to come back and win this game tonight if they want to have a chance. This series needs to go to a 7th game for the Oilers to have a chance, because they're not going to do it in 6. Even if they win tonight, the Panthers are going to win Game 6. It's just going to happen. They're not going to lose 3 straight. But it comes down to winning tonight, and then you go from there.
And obviously, we will certainly see what happens the rest of tonight. 2-0 Florida at the end of that first period. We're like that game in the Stanley Cup. We are also going to take another short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more NBA and talk about Kevin Durant, potentially a Minnesota Timberwolf. I don't know. It's an interesting thought, and we're going to get into that and dive into that topic when we come back on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host on the weekends, Jake Daley, alongside my good friend and co-host, Mehrob Fatemi. We got 2 more segments for y'all today on this Saturday, June 14th. And I think next we should talk about Kevin Durant and what's going to happen here with the Phoenix Suns and Kevin Durant. Could he really be on the move? And I saw today that could Minnesota actually be a landing spot for Kevin Durant? Mehrob, what do you kind of think about Kevin Durant being on the move potentially and Minnesota being a landing spot, or some of these other teams in the NBA? Who could you see being a landing spot for Kevin Durant? Oh, it looks as if there's some breaking news here. I don't know. I could be wrong.
You're wrong. I'm sorry. I actually thought I saw something about the New York Knicks, and I jumped at my phone so quickly. I'm so sorry.
We were so close to getting some breaking news in here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, but that's okay. We're on it for next time. We are primed and ready to give you the latest and greatest breaking news here. But let's focus back in on Kevin Durant, and what do you think could potentially happen here with KD? Do you think, first of all, he could potentially be on the move, and then could Minnesota be a landing spot, or where else could you think Kevin Durant could actually end up at?
Well, I'm 100% sure he's on the move. He's going to get traded this summer. It's going to happen. There's no maybe. There's no ifs and buts about it. The Phoenix Suns are ready to move off of Kevin Durant. That's first. Second, it was reported yesterday, I saw this, that this could be, expect this to happen within the next few days to a week. This is how quickly that this is going to happen. This is something that was already reported to happen before the NBA draft, and this fits right with that timetable, with the draft coming right around the corner before the end of the month. There are 2 teams right now that got reported today, according to Jake Fisher with ESPN, or with Bleacher Report, excuse me, that it looks like the 2 most likely landing spots right now are the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Miami Heat. Those are the 2 places that are on the top of the list in terms of trade destinations for Kevin Durant. I'll get into Miami first, just because I'm going to leave Minnesota for the end. Miami, I would like to see him there. I think not only will it help Tyler Hero grow into a better scorer, he's already a phenomenal scorer, but we're waiting to see Tyler Hero take that next step into being a leader on the team. I think he's around he's around Jalen Williams level. I would say he's a little bit higher than that, but he's around that 25 points a game scorer. I would say Jalen Williams is closer to 15 without SGA in the lineup. Hero's closer to 20-25, But I think Kevin Durant will do wonders for his career, not only to learn, be a mentor from Kevin Durant, but just be able to grow as a secondary scorer and continue to grow into that primary scorer eventually after Kevin Durant leaves. It would put Miami back into that conversation as one of the top tier teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think he would thrive with Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra, they might butt heads a little bit, and those are two personalities that you would see on paper could butt heads a little bit. Pat Riley as well. But if there's a guy that could get Kevin Durant under control and that could just have him sit there and come in, play basketball, and leave, it's Eric Spoelstra. And he will build that team. He will build that scheme around Kevin Durant. So that's first. I'll say that first. It would make Miami one of the top. I would put them probably fourth behind the or third without Jason Tatum healthy. I'd put him third behind the Celtics. But I'd put the Knicks and the Pacers ahead of them. Now let's get into the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm shocked that the Timberwolves are even this far in. I thought the Spurs and the Knicks would be ahead of them. But the fact that the Timberwolves are here, I am beyond happy because this is the place where I wanted to see Kevin Durant go to. Can you imagine Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards on the same team? Anthony Edwards has already brought the Timberwolves to a Western Conference final. Anthony Edwards has already back-to-back Western Conference finals. Anthony Edwards has already been the legend killer, took out Kevin Durant 2 years ago in the first round of the playoffs, has already been one of those top premier guys and is already being named or kind of given some of the spot, put into serious consideration as the next face of the NBA. Pair him up with Kevin Durant, I think that would be phenomenal. That would be a phenomenal pairing of those two. And if they can keep Julius Randle, if they can keep that core, if they can bring in a Naz Reid, I think Naz Reid would take a little bit of a pay cut to play on that team as well. I think Naz Reid's looking to get paid, but if he can stay on the team and if the Timberwolves can stay competitive, I would not be shocked if Naz Reid decides to stay. Keep Mike Conley, have Jaden McDaniels continue to prosper on that team, even though I don't think they would be able to keep him. In my estimation, if we are looking legitimately at a trade with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Suns and the Timberwolves, I think ideally they lose Gobert and McDaniels and most likely a first-round pick in that deal for KD. And I think that would actually really work in favor of the Suns too, because it would give the Suns some defensive presence and it would help the Timberwolves. And honestly, it would probably propel them to their first NBA Finals of their young career or young franchise career in the NBA.
Yeah, I think Minnesota's certainly an interesting option. Jackrabbit73 from YouTube said KD needs to go somewhere where he's the number one option. Heat makes sense for that reason. Minnesota doesn't really with Anthony Edwards. I tend to agree kind of with that thinking. I just think Kevin Durant, we've seen him want to be the number one option throughout his NBA career. That's kind of been something that's really been important for him. Besides those couple years with Golden State where he was kind of ring chasing, after joining a team where they break the wins record and you join that team, I think it's pretty clear what you're trying to do at that point. But besides that, Kevin Durant's kind of been a guy where he needs to be the number one option. I just think that's the one question mark I have with Minnesota. And that's also why, despite what Jake Fisher said, I think Houston still does make a lot of sense. I could see what he was saying where Houston doesn't really want to accelerate their rebuild. They have a lot of guys that are 25 and younger. But you have that team in Houston, that second, third best record in the Western Conference this year. You have a really young core. You give them a Kevin Durant, a guy that can be that alpha for those young guys, can be a guy to look up to for one of the Thompsons, Reed Shepherd, some of these young, Jabari Smith Jr., some of these younger guys. You have him, first of all, as that number one option, and then as a mentor to some of these younger guys too. I think Houston is a very viable landing spot, despite maybe they don't want to accelerate their rebuild that much. I don't think there's that much downside to adding Kevin Durant compared to some of these other franchises.
I see what you mean 100%. And I really, going back to what you said with him struggling, not being a number one option on a team, that is very valid and that is very true. But we did kind of see him starting to play off of Devin Booker this year, and they kind of really did prosper with one another. The problem with the Suns is that they didn't have a team to build around those two guys. On top of that, they had negative defense, and they were giving up, I think, 120, 130 points a game. Those two things taken into account, that is the reason why the Phoenix Suns struggled as much as they did. I think if he can take that role that he did with the Suns and replicate that with Anthony Edwards, I really think the Minnesota Timberwolves could be a team to be reckoned with. That's easier said than done, but I could see him doing so. He did it with Steph Curry. He did it with Devin Booker. He took a little bit of a starting role with the Brooklyn Nets, but that was granted, especially with Kyrie and James Harden. You're going to be the leader of that team with those two guys. I think this is Anthony Edwards' team. I think the team is built in a way where Kevin Durant can just be an offensive threat, which is exactly what you want. If he can continue to show up for 20 points a game and be a legitimate number two option, Julius Randle can fall to a number three, continue to get some offensive production, but doesn't need to be, doesn't grab as much attention from the defense, from opposing defenses. I think that would be really crucial for him to continue to prosper in that role. And Jaden McDaniels can fall away from that number three option. Jaden McDaniels really is, if Jaden McDaniels can focus on the defensive end and then sporadically, the same way Obi Toppin does, be one of those Indiana Pacers guys that shows up and gives you 20 points on any given night, 30 points sometimes, the way Jaden McDaniels knows he can, but focus and lock into the defensive end of the ball, I think that would do wonders for him because that is what he does best. He's a defensive guru. If he can focus on that end of the ball, he's fine. It's when you mix him up to the offensive end and you want him the same way that he was in the playoffs this year. They wanted him especially after that Lakers series, the way that he showed up. They wanted him to take that number three option, sometimes that number two when Julius Randle was having bad games. That doesn't happen for a guy. That doesn't work for a guy like Jaden McDaniels. Similarly to I'm going to tie this to Boston, same way it didn't work for Marcus Smart when he started to take a starting point guard role for them. He's a defensive guy. He's not offensive. If you mix them both, it doesn't work. It just ruins both sides of the ball. Let him focus on the defensive end. Bringing KD in would take a lot of pressure not only off Anthony Edwards but the rest of the team. It just depends on how he fits into that offense. Can he take that number two role? That's the question.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting situation. And one thing I kind of thought about was once Kevin Durant does get moved, is this kind of officially the end of the big three type era where you're able to have three guys on big time deals? We saw Phoenix try to do that with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, and that completely crippled this team with the presence of the second apron. They weren't able to add any depth. They couldn't aggregate contracts on trades. I think that's going to be another really interesting piece of this puzzle is once Kevin Durant gets moved, is that kind of the end of the big three type era? Because with these new financial restrictions, I think it's certainly very possible that that's the case. Even Boston right now, they're going to have to pretty much reconfigure their entire roster this year because they're facing over $500 million in terms of luxury tax. I think that's kind of an underappreciated storyline here is the moving into a new era where there's not a huge big three. And personally, I'm a really big fan of that. I think it's more fun when you only have one or two stars and you have a little more parity and a little more depth involved. And it just makes the product on the court better. But Minnesota, it's certainly very intriguing if Kevin Durant does end up there. Could we see him kind of replace Miami or Jimmy Butler in Miami? Could we see him take over this young Houston team? They're all certainly viable options. We're just going to have to see where Kevin Durant does go. But I think one thing is clear. We will not see Kevin Durant in a Phoenix Suns uniform this upcoming season. Right now, we're going to take our last break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Club World Cup. I don't know if Mehrob wanted to talk about something else, but if he did, we're going to talk about it tomorrow because the two of us are back here again tomorrow night. So stick with us. We'll be right back, and we're going to close out the show by talking about some soccer on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network on this Saturday, June 14th. We're going to finish off our show today by talking about a sport that we really don't normally talk about, but I'm a fan of it and I picked today's show, so we're going to go and talk about some soccer today in the FIFA Club World Cup that's kicking off tonight in Miami, Inter Miami taking on Al Hilal from Saudi Arabia. This is an interesting tournament, just so ever, and I just kind of want to set the scene for a minute too. When you're looking and taking a closer look at this supposed best of the best tournament of the world's best club soccer or football teams, 32 sides, but of those 32 sides, only 8 of them are reigning domestic champions. The most recent title winners from England, from Italy, from Spain, so 3 of the top 5 European leagues, from Portugal, from Argentina, from Japan, from the MLS. All of those champions are not included in this tournament. Of the 6 continental champions, only 3 of those teams are included in this tournament. And part of it's due to kind of a crazy qualifying process that has occurred over a period of 3 to 4 years. You take a team like the Urawa Red Diamonds playing in Japan's J League. Yes, we are getting obscure today in our last segment on the GSMC Sports Podcast. But so take the Urawa Red Diamonds, right? They win the 2022 Asian Champions League, but they kind of were lucky to be able to get that far. They had really solid draws and were able to scrap their way through the semifinal, win the final on penalties, and since then, they haven't really done anything else. The last time they won their actual domestic league was in 2006. Their highest league finish since 2016 was 4th place. So this is a team that they're nowhere near the top 32 teams in the world in terms of football, yet they're included in this Club World Cup. Rob, do you think this is just the FIFA trying to force this tournament on the U.S. market? Do you think they're just trying, is it a money grab? what do you kind of think is going on here with the Club World Cup? And first of all, did you even know that the Club World Cup was starting today? Because I think that also plays a factor in it. So first, I want you to answer that question.
You've called me out not once, but twice.
I'm not just saying it because of you. I'm not just saying it. I'm just saying everybody across. I think it goes to the general point that this event just wasn't marketed, right? Like, besides me and, some of the other real in-depth people, there's not a lot of casual American sports fans that know that this event is even going on right now. And probably, honestly, in cities that are near some of these people, too. I just think it's kind of crazy that it's supposedly, best of the best. What do you kind of think about the whole thing?
I mean, I saw it marketed for the first time about 2 weeks ago. I won't lie. I haven't seen
but isn't that crazy? Don't you think?
It's pretty crazy. Usually when you see World Cup news, you see it months. Similar to like Olympics, you see it months in advance. And it feels like, you know what this feels like? I don't know if they have this anymore. I haven't watched soccer in a long time. I think they still have this for like National League soccer. But I'm pretty sure, do they still have the Confederations Cup for club soccer? Is that still a thing, Jake? Or did they take that away?
Yes, there's something kind of similar, but yeah.
Okay. This reminds me just like that. You take champions of different leagues, or you could say it's Champions League, but in a way, this is during the summertime. Champions League happens in the winter. It happens between January, February, March, April. The winter colder months, the spring is when it usually happens. Summer is usually when players take it off. And there's a reason where you see NFL take it off, NBA, NHL take all the summer months off. Why? Because there's a time to take a break. The only sport that you see that plays in the summertime is baseball. And why? Because it's a perfect time. That's where they get their marketing to come from in the summertime. They get a bunch of marketing in the summertime. When I'm looking at soccer, I think they're definitely trying to force this a little bit with the MLS, especially with Lionel Messi joining the Inter Miami. We're going to see him later tonight. But I think they're trying to get the U.S. into it. I think that was a great point that you brought up, that they're trying to get the U.S. into the soccer market and get the MLS, try to start attracting some of these big-name players in Europe into the MLS. I think they're still going to want to go to the Real Madrids and the Bayern Munichs and the Juventus. They still want to go to the big leagues of soccer and of club soccer, because that's not only where the money is, that's where the competition is, and that's where a lot of these guys are very competitive. But if the MLS is to join that, not only would it be an amazing it's an untapped market in the US, but it would make Champions League that much more interesting. So I think those are two factors why they're trying to push this in the US, especially with this being on US soil in Los Angeles, around the US in general. I think this is a phenomenal move for FIFA. I'm going to pull the curtain back to your original question, though. I originally wanted to talk a little bit about the Red Sox-Yankees series. That's what we were kind of going back and forth. But my man Jake is the host of the show. We roll with him, so
well, I did already have the segment title typed in too, so we weren't trying to do some quick editing here on the fly. But the good news is we got another show tomorrow, so there's always more sports to talk about.
There's always more sports.
You did bring up a really good point, though, where you're talking about this season, and these players in the Club World Cup are exhausted. You look at the FIFA, the soccer season, the calendar is ridiculous already, going pretty much from August to the Champions League final was 2 weeks ago, just 14 days ago. You have a season that runs from August to the end of May, and then you're going to add another tournament that the importance is kind of debated. Does this even really matter that much? You're going to add another tournament during their offseason, during that limited offseason already. It just doesn't really make sense to me, where these players, they're all tired. probably a lot of them are wondering why they even have to play in this thing. Why do they have to go to the United States to play in this tournament? There's a lot of exhaustion physically, mentally. I just wonder, was the Club World Cup and kind of expanding it to this big stage, did it even kind of make sense to do? I think there's a lot of negative downsides. And another thing that we've seen is that these events have not sold out. There's been a lot of issues with ticketing here. And part of that was because the officials for FIFA in Miami, they all said, hey, let's use smaller MLS venues, which is what they're doing in cities like Nashville, in cities like Cincinnati. But then you also see matchups in MetLife Stadium, in Hard Rock. You have a Brazilian and an African side playing in Hard Rock Stadium, the home of the Miami Dolphins, where they can hold 65,000 to 70,000 people. They're not going to sell out that place, and they're not going to be anywhere near close to it. So it just doesn't really make sense to me that you're kind of really pushing it. I don't know what the upside is here. I think you're right on. They're trying to tap into that U.S. market. I don't know. It's still going to be an interesting competition. We're still going to see Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich, some of these great European clubs of soccer. We're still going to get to see them on American soil in a tournament that matters more so than when they come to the U.S. normally. But with that, we are going to end our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jake Daley, alongside my co-host and good friend, Mehrob Fatemi. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great night.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to